Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everybody. Mic's good? The mic will be great. It's been an otherwise fantastic event. I mean, kudos to the team. You've really done such a great job. Thank you. So once again, everybody, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. I am Rayyan. It's a pleasure to be here in the same auditorium I spent a lot of time in between 2005 and 2019. So yes, I'm a recent graduate. I'm not too old yet, even if there's a few gray hair coming here and there. And to be able to come back and share some of what I've learned since the time I graduated from Dubai Scholars. A little bit about myself. I'm 23 years old. Yes, I am 23 years old. And I am pursuing my master's right now. Prior to that, I come from a background in industrial engineering and engineering management. But I've been fortunate enough to get a challenge early on in life in terms of managing a multinational organization. When I was 19 years old in December 2020, life was good, it was chill, it was relaxed, just like how you mentioned about how life can change overnight in your speech about healthcare. And all of a sudden, in December 2020, my father, chairman of our group of companies, was immobilized. Now, as the oldest in the house at that time, I was lucky enough to be able to shoulder some of the burden and responsibility. Our primary focus is in education. And so today I come to you, you might notice I don't have any slides, I come to you, to the students to talk to you as an older brother, to the parents to talk to you as a guardian, because I have 3 younger siblings at home and I deal with their antics every now and then. And finally, to our teachers and educators here, I come back to you as your student, turned colleague. There's still a lot to learn, but some other things that I want to share and highlight about the sacrifices and investments you make in your day-to-day lives. Now, education has changed magnanimously across the last century. 2005, when I entered school, we were still at that academic infrastructure where it was a notebook-based learning primarily. The teacher would come, there were lesson plans, there were things, but they were more shared in terms of human capital and transfer of knowledge rather than a formal table or a formal structure. And then towards the time I graduated from high school, it had changed completely. The Bring Your Own Device program was part of institutions, and more changes happened even during COVID. That was the accelerant that really has transformed the education landscape. They say necessity is the mother of innovation, and truly during COVID, when we were sitting at home, we were sitting in front of our screens, that's when education really changed for the better, and now it's going on to a whole new scope, just like ma'am mentioned, towards the generation beta and alpha in schools. Now, what are the few key things that are distinct from education in the previous decades? Well, number one, something with a T, technology. AI, digital twins, virtual reality have transformed not only respective fields in science, but academics as well. Students can now, using augmented reality and virtual reality, if they're having a history lesson, they can walk through the streets of Rome or walk through the streets as the Anglo-Saxons entered and ransacked towns. Or they can even go into virtual labs and conduct experiments from the comfort of their own couch. But students, please do that. I know sometimes we fall asleep with the laptop. Besides that, another thing that's become more and more prominent in the education landscape, especially in secondary education, is the gamification of academics. Now, games are being developed to challenge the prefrontal cortex of the brain. You're improving your critical thinking, your analytical skills, as well as your problem-solving skills, which, by the way, is a wonderful argument to play a little bit more Fortnite and Minecraft if you're talking to your parents. Why has it changed this much, though? It's simply because universities and higher education institutions, companies, once you graduate and you go towards them, are no longer looking for the hard worker. They're looking for the smart worker. They no longer have that initial emphasis on having the theoretical knowledge or even having the understanding of the application of knowledge, but rather the primary focus is how are you going to deal with real life situations. And trust me, as far as it goes, real life situations really deviate, my dear students, from what we learn in the classroom and what we learn in the closed atmosphere of a school. It really changes. Now, some key case study examples are education in Singapore, for example. In Singapore, they have different track-based learning for different caliber students. But that doesn't mean you distinct between somebody who's more academically inclined and somebody who's less academically inclined, or you could say your high achievers, your average achievers, and your below expectation achievers. No, rather it's a focus on students who perform well academically. So there is the meritorious track, and then for students who perform well in the arts, there is a separate meritorious track for them, or students who perform better with humanities, or with commerce, or specifically with science. Because again, there's no longer a generalization in the workforce that, oh, we're going to be an engineer, or an industrial engineer, or a mechanical engineer, or I'm going to be a general doctor. Micro-specification is the key to the future, because in the next coming decades, what we're expecting in the labor force is a huge paradigm shift where just being a general jack of all trades isn't going to cut. We can't sit there in the management chair or in an executive chair and say that, okay, I have a general idea of everything. There needs to be a specialization, because that's what companies are going to be looking for. Another really good case study that supports the Singapore one is Finland. Finland has one of the highest PISA achieving rates among students within their institutions, simply because they have very strong government vision. They understand that even though academics and education used to be a social cause, earlier I had the chance to speak to some of my teachers over here, and I was empathizing with them about what a noble cause this is and how rewarding it is to see your students go up and after school. But it's no longer just a social cause. Education has changed into an infrastructural and commercialization cause as well. Governments' macroeconomic policy is now centered around education. Macroeconomic policy dictates that the quality of education is going to determine the level and quality of development and innovation in a country, which was not part many years before. This was not a central focus earlier. All we believed in was that a good quality education for our young ones meant that the country would be able to continue along its development path, but that's no longer what we're looking for. Even Mr. Tariq in his first fantastic speech mentioned how these things have an exponential growth. And so countries like Finland, they have made education free for all their students. They've made it more accessible for everybody, because they understand that if education has limited accessibility, or a low-fee school can only attract people of that paying capability, so on and so forth, then it leaves a huge disparity in the future generation that's going to be working and investing in the nation building of the school, of the country. The final case study that I want to bring to your attention is that of Sweden. Now, Sweden does things a little like Singapore and a little like Finland. What they do is first of all, they don't start formal education until the age of 7. So your primary years, they are particularly focused simply on learning by play, because they understand that the root of human innovation has always been the mimicry of nature. How did the Wright brothers make the plane? Do you know? They copied the bird. Children, when they're out in nature and they're interacting with nature, and as Mr. Tariq again earlier mentioned, they have the highest level of creativity at that point. And that fundamental mindset can only be developed at that age, when we're still gullible, when we're still learning what the world is. And so Sweden follows that. Until the age of 7, there is no formal education. They have very good preschools built around to support the nature around them, and that's it. The entire basis of education is interact with nature and instill core values, moral values, ethics. After that, then they move on into what Singapore does, that they have separate meritorious tracks, one for those who are academically inclined, one for those who are inclined in the other fields. Again, they understand that it's not mutually exclusive. These things can happen simultaneously. After that, they ensure that whatever values were instilled in the core fundamental aspect until the age of 7, they are reverberated and reiterated and consistently pushed in every single thing the students do. Because as technology grows, right, there is the aspect that there is a general stupidity that's increasing as well. As technology grows, common sense is becoming less and less common. Why? Because of the reliance on technology. It's human tendency to rely on what's easy. I remember during board exams when they allowed calculators, 5 into 0 equals to 0. Before writing it in my paper, I just made sure in the calculator that it's the same answer. And so Sweden pushes that the ability to trust in oneself and to use technology as a tool, as just a tool and not a means to an end, is what the students work for. And therefore, they again have amongst the highest PISA academic rates in the world. So my dear students, my dear parents, we're in the middle of a technological revolution. We really are. We had the recent presidential inauguration, and out in the forefront, we had the world's most successful, as well as the world's most powerful tech CEOs sitting there in attendance, because that shows a shift in the world's largest, most powerful economy and their focus on technology. So it's a given. This is going to happen whether we like it or not. The question is, can we accept it not as an addendum to our life, but rather as an external tool and a limb that we use only when needed? Or are we going to have complete reliance on it and perhaps neuter our neurons and our neurological senses? That question can only be answered by you. My request to you, all of you, is keep it as a tool. Use it as a limb. It's going to help you be more successful in whatever you do, whether it's formatting teaching plans and lesson plans. You need to add your spice into it, because then only will you be able to self-actualize and optimize the use of this technology during what is a tumultuous period for the world. Thank you.